Admiral Vexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue and green planets slowly turn on the main screen. Earth, such a small world, but it had kept his people busy for over 3,000 years. The Zephyrian Confederation had watched this planet and its strange inhabitants for longer than most species had existed. He touched a control panel, and images filled the air around him. Humans walking on two legs. Humans building crude machines. Humans fighting endless wars over tiny pieces of land. They were so primitive, so violent, and yet so fascinating. "Admiral," said his science officer, Catherine. She was young for her. Rank, with the bright purple skin that marked her as one of the new generation. "The cultural analysis report is ready." Vexstar nodded. He had been waiting for this. The humans created the most interesting stories of any species the Confederation had ever studied. Stories about traveling between stars, about great battles in space, about ruling entire galaxies. It was almost sad how they dreamed of things they could never have. "Show me," he said. The air filled with human images and sounds. Movies, they called them. Books, television shows, games, all filled with the same impossible dreams. Massive ships that could destroy planets, fleets of thousands of vessels, weapons that could tear holes in space itself. "Look at this one," Catherine said, pointing to a scene of human ships fighting alien invaders. "They always make themselves the heroes. They always win against impossible odds. Their imagination knows no limits." Vexstar watched a human spacecraft fire red beams that cut through an alien ship like it was made of paper. The humans cheered as their enemies exploded in bright flashes. He had seen thousands of these stories over the years. They were all the same. Humans were always the strongest, always the smartest, always the winners. "It is their way of dealing with their weakness," said Dr. Veltash, the head xenobiologist. He was old, even by Zephyrian standards, and had studied humans longer than anyone else alive. "They know they are trapped on one small world. They know they are alone in the universe. So they create fantasies where they are powerful." The doctor brought up more images. Humans in strange costumes, pretending to fight in space. Humans writing stories about conquering alien empires. Humans playing games where they commanded vast fleets of imaginary ships. "Every species does this to some degree," Dr. Veltash continued, "but humans take it further than anyone else. They have created detailed technical manuals for ships that do not exist. They have written military strategies for battles that will never happen. They have even created languages for alien races they will never meet." Vexstar found this both amusing and slightly disturbing. The humans spent so much time on their fantasies. They had entire industries built around making these impossible stories. They paid money to watch other humans pretend to fight in fake space battles. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "the High Command wants to know when we will begin the conquest." Vexstar looked at the planet again. Such a beautiful world, really. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. It would make a fine addition to the Confederation. The humans would adapt to life under Zephyrian rule, just as hundreds of other species had done. "Soon," he said. "But first, I want to understand them better. Catherine, show me their military capabilities." The young officer touched her controls, and new images appeared. Human soldiers with primitive weapons. Human aircraft that could barely leave their atmosphere. Human ships that had only recently learned to leave their home planet. "They have sent a few small probes to nearby planets," Catherine reported. "Nothing more than simple robots. Their largest ships can carry perhaps a dozen individuals. Their weapons are chemical explosives and simple energy devices. They pose no threat to even our oldest scout ships." Vexstar nodded. This was what he had expected. The humans were exactly what they appeared to be, a young species that had barely learned to leave their cradle world. Their dreams of galactic conquest were just that, dreams. What about their governments? He asked. Fractured, said Dr. Veltash. They are divided into nearly 200 separate nations. They fight constantly among themselves over resources, territory, and ideology. They have never been able to unite, even when facing common threats like natural disasters or disease. This was also typical. Most species went through this phase before developing faster-than-light travel. The smart ones learned to work together. The foolish ones destroyed themselves before they could reach the stars. The humans seemed to be somewhere in between. Admiral, said his communications officer, we are receiving a transmission from the Confederation Council. They want to know why we are delaying. Vexstar sighed. The Council was always impatient. They saw a new world to conquer and wanted it done quickly. They did not understand the value of studying their prey first. Tell them we are conducting final preparations, he said. The conquest will begin within the next few days. He turned back to the images of human culture. There was something about these stories that bothered him, though he could not say what. The humans were so confident in their fantasies. They really seemed to believe that they could stand against superior alien forces and win. Dr. Veltash, he said, in all your years studying humans, have you ever seen them accomplish anything truly unexpected? The old scientist thought for a moment. They are remarkably adaptable, he said slowly, and they do have an unusual capacity for innovation when under pressure. But no, nothing that would change our assessment of their capabilities. Vexstar watched a scene where a single human ship somehow defeated an entire alien fleet. The story was ridiculous, of course. No single ship could stand against a properly organized space force. But the humans watching it cheered and believed. Every moment. Sir, said his tactical officer again, the fleet is ready for the attack. All ships are in position. We can begin orbital bombardment within the hour. Vexstar looked at his fleet displayed on another screen. 300 ships, each one capable of destroying entire cities. The humans had nothing that could even scratch their armor. This would not be a battle. It would be an extermination. Very well, he said. Signal all ships. We move toward Earth in 6 hours. The humans will surrender or be destroyed. As his officers began preparing for the attack, Vexstar took one last look at the human stories playing in the air around him. Brave humans fighting impossible odds. Clever humans outsmarting superior enemies. Noble humans sacrificing themselves. To save others. Such wonderful dreams, he thought. Too bad dreams could not stop plasma cannons. The great ships of the Zephyrian Confederation began moving toward the small blue world. Their crews were confident, their weapons were charged, and their victory was certain. They had done this hundreds of times before with hundreds of other species. But in all their thousands of years of watching, the Zephyrians had never asked themselves one important question. What if the humans had been watching back? Admiral Vexstar watched the countdown timer reach 0. The moment had arrived. His fleet had moved into Earth's outer system, their weapons ready and their shields raised. 300 ships spread across space like hungry predators surrounding their prey. Begin broadcasting the surrender demand, he ordered. The message went out in dozens of languages. The Confederation had learned human speech patterns long ago. The message was simple and clear. Surrender now or face complete destruction. They gave the humans exactly 1 hour to respond. Vexstar expected panic. He expected desperate radio calls between human governments. He expected frantic attempts to negotiate or plead for mercy. Every other species had reacted this way when faced with Confederation power. Instead, there was nothing. Sir, said his communications officer, looking confused. We are receiving no response from the planet. None at all? Vexstar asked. No. Sir, all human communication channels have gone completely silent. Radio, television, internet signals, everything has stopped. This was strange, but not entirely unexpected. Some species tried to hide when faced with superior force. Perhaps the humans thought that staying quiet would somehow make the Confederation go away. Very well, Vextar said. Send scout ships to investigate their major cities. If they will not answer, we will make them answer. But when the scout ships approached Earth, they found something impossible. The planet looked normal from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land. But when they tried to scan the surface, their instruments gave confusing readings. Admiral, called his science officer Catherine, her voice tight with worry. The scouts are reporting anomalies. What kind of anomalies? Sir, the human cities appear to be ... empty. Vextar felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Empty? All of them? The scouts detect no life signs from any major population center. No movement, no heat signatures, no electromagnetic activity. It is as if every human simply vanished. This made no sense. 7 billion humans could not just disappear. Even if they had tried to evacuate their cities, the Confederation's sensors would have detected them moving into the countryside or underground. Could they be using some kind of shielding technology? Vextar asked. Dr. Veltash shook his head. Impossible. Sir, we have monitored their technological development for millennia. They do not possess the knowledge to create such devices. Then where are they? Nobody had an answer. Vextar ordered more detailed scans. His ships had sensors that could detect a single individual from orbit. They could see through buildings, underground, even underwater. But when they turned these powerful instruments toward Earth, they found something that made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. The planet was not empty. There were humans there, billions of them, but they were not where they should be. Sir, Catherine said, her voice barely above a whisper. The humans are all underground, deep underground, in facilities that should not exist. Show me. The main screen filled with images from deep beneath the Earth's surface. Vast complexes stretched for kilometers in every direction. Some were so deep they reached almost to the planet's core. The construction was beyond anything the humans should have been capable of building. How long would it take to build such facilities? Vextar asked. With human technology? Dr. Veltash calculated quickly. Centuries, perhaps longer. But we have been watching them. We would have seen this construction. Yes, sir, we would have. Unless ... Unless what? Unless they built them without us knowing. But that would require technology far beyond what we have observed. Vextar studied the images more carefully. The underground cities were not crude shelters. They were sophisticated installations with power sources, life support systems, and what appeared to be manufacturing facilities. Some sections were so advanced that even Confederation engineers would be impressed. Sir, called his tactical officer, we are detecting energy readings from the outer system. What kind of energy readings? Unknown, sir. The signatures do not match any known technology. They appear to be coming from ... empty space. Vextar felt the cold sensation growing stronger. Put it on the screen. The image changed to show the dark space beyond Earth's orbit. At first, it looked empty. Then his sensors began highlighting areas where energy was building. Dozens of spots throughout the system were glowing with power that had no visible source. Could these be some kind of weapons platforms? He asked. Negative, sir. We would be able to see weapons platforms. These energy signatures are coming from nothing. Nothing does not generate energy, Vextar said sharply. There must be something there. His science teams worked frantically, adjusting sensors and trying different scanning frequencies. Slowly, very slowly, ghostly outlines began to appear. On their screens, ships, hundreds of ships scattered throughout the solar system, all of them invisible to normal detection. Cloaking technology, breathed Catherine. But how? Humans do not possess cloaking technology. Vextar stared at the growing number of contacts on his tactical display. The ships were not small. Some appeared to be larger than his own flagship, and they were everywhere, hidden behind asteroids, lurking in the shadows of planets, drifting silently in the dark between worlds. "Sir," his communications officer said urgently, "I am picking up massive data transmissions throughout the system. Encrypted communications on frequencies we have never seen humans use. Can you decode them?" "No, sir. The encryption is. It is more advanced than our own." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of instruments. Vextar found himself staring at a tactical situation that made no sense. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be helpless. They were supposed to surrender or die when faced with Confederation power. Instead, they had vanished underground into facilities that should not exist. They had hidden a fleet of ships using technology they should not possess. They were using communication systems more advanced than anything the Confederation had developed. "Admiral," his tactical officer said, his voice carefully controlled, "I am detecting movement from the hidden contacts. They appear to be surrounding us." Vextar looked at his tactical display and felt fear for the first time in his long military career. The Confederation fleet was no longer the hunter. Somehow, without anyone noticing, they had become the prey. "Sir," Catherine said quietly, "there is something else. I have been analyzing the energy signatures from the hidden ships. Some of them are impossible." "What do you mean?" "The power readings suggest weapons that could destroy our largest ships with a single shot. Engines that could travel between stars in hours instead of days. Shields that could deflect anything in our arsenal." Vextar thought about all those human stories his people had studied. Stories about mighty fleets and impossible weapons. Stories about humans who could stand against any enemy and win. Stories they had dismissed as primitive fantasies. "Dr. Veltash," he said slowly, "when did humans first begin creating these stories about space warfare?" The old scientist checked his records. "Approximately 150 years ago, sir. Just after they developed radio technology." "And when did we first begin monitoring their radio signals?" "Approximately 150 years ago. Sir, the realization hit Vextar like a physical blow. The humans had not been creating fantasies. They had been making plans. And while the Confederation had been watching and laughing at human dreams, the humans had been building those dreams into reality." "Sir," his communications officer said urgently, "I am receiving a transmission. It is coming from one of the hidden ships." "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was calm, confident, and completely human. It spoke in perfect Zephyrian. "Confederation. Fleet. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Federation Defense Force. You have entered our territory without permission and with obvious hostile intent. You have exactly 60 seconds to explain your presence here, or we will consider you an invasion force and respond accordingly." Vextar stared at the empty space where he now knew a human ship was waiting. The prey had just spoken to the predator as an equal, and somehow the predator was afraid. Admiral Vextar stared at the communication panel, his hands shaking slightly. A human had just spoken to him in perfect Zephyrian. Not only that, but this human knew his rank and the name of his fleet. This should have been impossible. "How long do we have?" he asked his tactical officer. 58 seconds remaining, sir." Vextar had commanded fleets for over 2 centuries. He had conquered dozens of worlds and faced hundreds of different species. But he had never felt this confused and frightened. Everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Channel open, sir." Vexstar cleared his throat and tried to sound confident. "This is Admiral Vexstar of the Zephyrian Confederation. We are here to offer your species membership in our galactic community." The response came immediately, and the human voice sounded almost amused. "Admiral, your ships arrived in battle formation, with weapons charged and shields raised. Your first action was to demand our surrender. This does not seem like a membership offer." How did she know about his weapons and shields? His ships were still cloaked to human sensors. At least they should be cloaked. The cold feeling in Vexstar's stomach grew worse. "Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding," he said carefully. "There has been no misunderstanding, Admiral. We know exactly why you are here. We know about the Confederation's expansion policies. We know what happened to the Kalari, the Thraxians, and the 47 other species you have invited to join your community." Vexstar felt his blood turn to ice. The Kalari and Thraxians had been conquered over 50 years ago. Their worlds were on the other side of the galaxy. How could humans possibly know about them? "Admiral Chun," he said, using the human's name. "How do you know these things?" "The same way we know about your fleet composition, your weapon capabilities, and your invasion protocols. We have been watching you, just as you have been watching us." "That is impossible. Humans do not have the technology to build observation posts in deep space, to monitor galactic communications, to travel between star systems without being detected." The human's voice carried a note of cold humor. "Admiral, you have spent so long studying our entertainment that you forgot to study our capabilities." Suddenly, space around the Confederation fleet began to change. Reality seemed to ripple and tear, and massive shapes began emerging from what looked like holes in space itself. Ships. Enormous ships that dwarfed even Vexstar's flagship. The first ship to fully appear was a kilometer long and bristling with weapons that Vexstar did not recognize. Its hull was a dark metal that seemed to absorb light, and energy patterns flowed across its surface like living things. As it settled into normal space, smaller ships began pouring out of bays along its sides. "By the void," whispered Catherine. "How many ships do they have?" More tiers in space opened throughout the system. Dozens of massive vessels emerged, each one different from the others, but all clearly built for war. Some were long and sleek like spears. Others were broad and heavy like floating fortresses. A few defied easy description, their shapes seeming to shift and change as they moved. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, his voice tight with fear, "I count over 800 human vessels. And sir, their power readings are off the scale. Some of these ships are generating more energy than our entire fleet combined." Vexstar watched in growing horror as humanity's true fleet revealed itself. These were not the crude vessels his scouts had reported. These were warships that looked like they had stepped out of human fantasy stories. Except they were real, and they were here. "Admiral Vexstar," came Admiral Chun's voice again. "I believe you wanted to see our military capabilities. Are you satisfied with this demonstration?" One of the human ships moved closer to Vexstar's flagship. It was smaller than the others, perhaps only half a kilometer long, but it radiated power like a miniature star. Weapons arrays tracked his ship's movement with mechanical precision. "This is impossible," Dr. Veltash said from behind him. "We monitored their development. We watched their progress. They were barely capable of reaching their own moon just decades ago." "Dr. Veltash," Admiral Chun said, apparently able to hear everything being said on the Confederation bridge. "Your monitoring posts were quite easy to find once we knew what to look for. We have been feeding you false information for the better part of a century." The old scientist's face went pale. "False information? But we saw their cities, their industries, their space program. You saw what we wanted you to see. While your people were studying our movies and television shows, our real scientists were studying your technology. Every monitoring post you established gave us more information about your capabilities. Every probe you sent taught us more about your weaknesses. Vexstar felt his worldview crumbling around him. How long? He asked quietly. How long have we known about you? Since 1947, when one of your scout ships crashed in our desert. How long have we been preparing for this day? Since the moment we realized we were not alone in the universe. A new image appeared on Vexstar's main screen. It showed the wreckage of a small Confederation vessel, surrounded by human soldiers in primitive uniforms. He recognized the ship design. It was from their early exploration fleet. That crash taught us many things, Admiral Chun continued. It taught us that we were being watched. It taught us that there were hostile forces in the galaxy. Most importantly, it taught us that we needed to be ready. Ready for what? Vexstar asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Ready for you. More human ships continued to emerge from hyperspace. The technology alone should have been impossible. The Confederation had been trying to perfect hyperspace travel for millennia, and they could only manage short jumps with massive energy expenditure. The humans seemed to use it as easily as walking from one room to another. Your entertainment. Industry was quite helpful, Admiral Chun said. Every movie about space battles taught us new tactics. Every story about alien invasions showed us what we might face. Every game about galactic warfare gave us ideas for new weapon systems. Vexstar thought about all those human stories his people had dismissed as fantasy. Stories about planet-killing weapons and faster-than-light communication. Stories about ships that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Stories about humans who never gave up, no matter how impossible the odds. You used your own fantasies as blueprints, he said, understanding at last. We used our imagination as inspiration and your technology as a foundation. The combination proved quite effective. One of the largest human ships moved directly in front of the Confederation fleet. It was easily 3 kilometers long and shaped like a massive sword. Energy discharges danced along its hull, and Vexstar S sensors detected weapon systems that could probably destroy planets. Admiral, his tactical officer said quietly, our fleet is completely surrounded. We are outnumbered 3-1, and their ships appear to be far more advanced than ours. Can we fight our way out? Sir, I do not believe we could damage even one of their ships with our entire fleet. Vexstar looked at his tactical display one more time. 300 Confederation ships, the pride of their military, surrounded by 800 human vessels that looked like they had been built by gods of war. Admiral Chun, he said, his voice carefully controlled. What happens now? Now, Admiral Vexstar, you have a choice to make. You can try to fight us, though I suspect that would not end well for your fleet. Or you can listen to what we have to say. And what do you have to say? That the galaxy is about to change, Admiral. The Confederation's age of expansion is over. Humanity is here now, and we have very different ideas about how civilized species should treat each other. Vexstar realized that he was no longer looking at primitive humans who could be easily conquered. He was looking at the most dangerous predator the galaxy had ever seen. And somehow, humanity had become that predator while the Confederation watched and laughed at their dreams. The prey had not just become the hunter. They had become something far worse. They had become humanity. Admiral Vexstar stared at the massive human fleet surrounding his ships. The silence on his bridge was complete, except for the quiet beeping of instruments that were detecting power levels beyond anything they had been designed to measure. Admiral Chun, he said finally, you said you have something to tell us. We are listening. Good. First, let me properly introduce myself. I am Admiral Sarah Chun, Commanding Officer of the Terran Federation Defense Force. I have been waiting to meet you for a very long time. A new image appeared on Vextar's screen. It showed a human woman in a military uniform, unlike anything he had seen in their cultural files. The uniform was clearly designed for space warfare, with built-in systems and technology that looked more advanced than Confederation equipment. "You have been waiting for us?" Vextar asked. "Not just you specifically, but ships like yours. We knew that eventually someone would come to conquer Earth. The Confederation seemed like the most likely candidate." Admiral Chan's image changed to show what appeared to be a war room filled with humans working at control stations. In the background, massive displays showed star charts and fleet positions covering thousands of light years. For the past 78 years, we have been studying every species the Confederation has conquered. We know your tactics, your weapons, your psychology. We know how you operate because we have watched you do it over and over again. Dr. Veltash stepped forward on Vextar's bridge. "How is this possible? We detected no human ships in those systems. We monitored all communications." "Dr. Veltash," Admiral Chan said, apparently recognizing the old scientist, "your research on human culture was quite thorough. Unfortunately, you made the same mistake most conquerors make. You studied what we showed you, not what we are actually doing." The display changed to show images of various alien worlds. Vextar recognized several of them as recent Confederation conquests. But in each image, there were strange objects in the background that he had never noticed before. "Observation posts," Admiral Chun explained. "Hidden in asteroid belts, disguised as space debris, cloaked just outside sensor range. We have been watching the Confederation's expansion for decades. But the technology required ... double quotes, Catherine began. The technology required was beyond our official capabilities, yes. But you forgot something important about humans, Catherine. We are very good at making the impossible seem possible when our survival is at stake." Admiral Chun's expression grew more serious. "Every time the Confederation conquered a world, we learned something new. The Kalari showed us how important orbital defenses were. The Thraxians taught us about shield harmonics. The Vorthan demonstrated the value of mobile strike forces. The display showed footage that made Vextar's blood run cold. Human ships observing Confederation fleets as they destroyed cities. Human soldiers recording battle tactics as alien civilizations fell. Human scientists studying wreckage in the aftermath of conquest. You were there," Vextar said, horrified. "You watched us destroy entire civilizations and did nothing to help them." "We tried to help when we could," Admiral Chun replied. "But our fleet was not ready. We needed time to build, to prepare, to become strong enough to matter. The Confederation taught us that in this galaxy, only strength is respected. So you used our own methods against us," Dr. Veltash said quietly. "We used your methods to understand you. But our methods are very different." The display changed again, showing the interior of one of the human ships. Vextar was shocked to see that the crew included members of species he recognized: Kalari, Thraxians, Vorthans, and others that the Confederation had supposedly conquered. "Those species were supposed to be under our control," he said. "They were, until we freed them." Admiral Chun's words hit Vextar like a physical blow. "Freed them? How?" "The same way we learned about your technology. Very carefully, very quietly, and over a very long time. Every species the Confederation conquered, we eventually contacted. We offered them something you never did. A choice." The display showed human ships arriving at Confederation-controlled worlds. But instead of attacking, they were evacuating people. Millions of people from dozens of different species, all being taken to safety. Where did you take them? Vextar asked. To freedom. We have established new colonies for refugee species throughout the galaxy. Hidden worlds where they can rebuild their civilizations without fear of conquest. Catherine looked confused. But why? What do you gain from this? We gain allies. We gain knowledge. We gain the satisfaction of knowing that we are not alone in our fight against tyranny. Admiral Chun's voice carried a strength that Vextar had never heard from any conquered species. But most importantly, we gain the right to call ourselves the good guys. The display showed images of thriving cities on dozens of worlds. Former slaves working together with humans to build new lives. Children of different species playing together. Scientists sharing knowledge across racial boundaries. This is what the galaxy could be, Admiral Chun said. This is what we are fighting for. Vextar felt something he had never experienced before. Shame. For centuries, he had believed that the Confederation brought order to the galaxy. He had convinced himself that conquest was necessary, that the strong had the right to rule the weak. You are saying we are wrong, he said. I'm saying you had a choice, just like we did. When we learned we were not alone in the universe, we could have chosen to hide. We could have chosen to run. Instead, we chose to fight for something better. And what makes you think you can succeed where others have failed? Admiral Chun smiled, and for the first time, Vextar saw something in her expression that truly frightened him. It was not anger or hatred. It was absolute confidence. Because we learned from every single one of your victories, Admiral. Every tactic you used, every weakness you exploited, every mistake your enemies made, we studied it. All. And then we built a fleet specifically designed to counter everything you do. The massive human fleet began moving into new formations. Vextar watched in fascination and terror as 800 ships moved with perfect coordination. Their movements were so precise, they seemed almost like a dance. Your standard battle doctrine calls for overwhelming firepower directed at enemy command ships, Admiral Chun continued. Our ships have no single command point. Destroy one, and 10 others can take its place. The formation shifted again, demonstrating the point. Even as individual ships moved out of position, the overall formation remained strong and coordinated. Your weapons are designed to penetrate shields through concentrated energy bursts. Our shields regenerate faster than your weapons can damage them. Your fleets depend on supply lines and support vessels. Our ships can operate independently for years if necessary. Your tactics assume that enemies will fight in predictable patterns. We learned those patterns and designed counters for every single one. Vextar realized that he was not looking at a fleet that had been built to fight aliens. He was looking at a fleet that had been built specifically to fight the Confederation. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic had been designed with one purpose in mind. You built all of this just to defeat us, he said. We built all of this to stop you. There is a difference. What difference? Defeating you would mean destroying your fleet and conquering your worlds. Stopping you means giving you a choice. Admiral Chun's expression softened slightly. The same choice we gave to the species you conquered. The same choice we are giving to you now. And what choice is that? You can continue to serve an empire built on conquest and slavery. Or you can join us in building something better. Vextar looked around his bridge at his officers. He saw fear in their eyes, but he also saw something else. Hope, the same hope. He was beginning to feel himself. And if we refuse? Admiral Chun's expression hardened again. Then you will discover just how effective human weapons can be when we stop holding back. The choice was no choice at all. Surrender and possibly find redemption, or fight and face certain destruction. But for the first time in his life, Vextar realized that surrender might not mean defeat, it might mean salvation. Admiral Vexstar stood in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Around him, his bridge crew waited for his decision. Outside his ship, 800 human vessels waited with the patience of predators who knew their prey, had nowhere to run. He thought about his long career in the Confederation Navy, all those worlds conquered, all those species enslaved, all those civilizations destroyed. He had told himself it was necessary, that it brought order to the galaxy. But now, faced with humanity's alternative, he realized it had only brought suffering. "Admiral Chun," he said finally, "if we surrender, what happens to my crew?" "They will be treated with respect and dignity. Those who wish to return to Confederation space will be allowed to do so. Those who wish to stay and learn about our way of life will be welcomed. And what about me? You will have the same choice as everyone else. But I should warn you, if you return to the Confederation, you will carry a message that will change everything." Vexstar understood. If he returned home and told the truth about what he had found, it would shatter everything the Confederation believed about itself. The news that a primitive species had not only resisted conquest, but had built a superior military force, would spread panic throughout their space. What message would that be? That the age of conquest is over, that there is a new power in the galaxy, and we will not tolerate the enslavement of sentient beings. Dr. Veltash stepped forward again. "Admiral Chun, surely you understand that the Confederation will not simply accept this. They will send larger fleets, more ships than you can possibly handle." Admiral Chun's smile was cold and confident. "Dr. Veltash, how many ships do you think we have? Based on what we have seen here, perhaps 1,000 vessels total." "You are thinking too small, Doctor. This fleet represents 1% of our current military capacity." The words hit the bridge like a thunderbolt. Vexstar felt his legs grow weak. 1%? The Terran Federation currently operates over 80,000 combat vessels of various classes. We have been building continuously for 78 years, using resources from 300 star systems. 300 systems? Catherine gasped. "But that is impossible. We would have detected such expansion. You detected what we wanted you to detect. While you were watching Earth, we were colonizing the galaxy. Every refugee species we rescued became a partner in our expansion. Every world we liberated became a base for further operations." The display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems were marked in blue, indicating human control or alliance. The marked territory covered nearly a quarter of known space. We have shipyards in the Vega system building dreadnoughts, mining operations in the Centauri cluster providing raw materials, research stations in the Outer Rim developing new technologies, all of it hidden from Confederation sensors by the same stealth technology you have seen today. Vexstar stared at the map in growing horror. The Confederation controlled perhaps 50 star systems. They had always believed themselves to be the dominant power in the galaxy. Now he realized they were barely a regional power compared to what humanity had built. "Why reveal this now?" he asked. "You could have remained hidden, continued building in secret." "Because the time for hiding is over." The Confederation's next target was the Altair system, home to 12 billion Zentari refugees who escaped your last conquest. We will not allow that to happen. So this is war. This is a warning. The Confederation has one chance to change its ways peacefully. If you choose to continue your expansion, you will face the full might of the Terran Federation and all our allies. Admiral Chan's expression grew even more serious. "Admiral Vexstar, I want you to understand something very important. Humans do not fight wars the way other species do. When we decide something is worth fighting for, we do not stop until we win. We do not negotiate halfway victories. We do not accept partial defeats. What are you saying? I am saying that if the Confederation forces us to go to war, we will not stop until every enslaved species is free and every conquered world is liberated. We will pursue your fleets to the edge of the galaxy if necessary. The display changed to show footage of human military exercises. Massive fleets moving in perfect coordination. Weapons that could destroy moons. Ships that could travel across the galaxy in days instead of months. We learned from studying your history, Admiral. Every species you conquered made the same mistake. They fought defensively, trying to protect what they had instead of taking the fight to you. We will not make that mistake. You would attack. The Confederation homeworlds? If necessary, yes. But we would prefer not to. We would prefer that this ends peacefully, with the Confederation choosing to evolve into something better. Vexstar realized that he was not just choosing between surrender and death. He was choosing between two possible futures for the galaxy. One where the Confederation continued its expansion until it met total destruction at human hands. Another, where they learned to coexist with species who refused to be conquered. Admiral Chun, he said slowly, what would this evolution look like? The Confederation would release all conquered species and allow them to choose their own governments. You would cease all military expansion and join the Galactic Council, where all species have equal representation. You would contribute to the common defense against threats like pirates and hostile aliens. But you would never again force your will on others. And if we refuse, then we will do it for you. But it will be much more painful that way. Vexstar looked around his bridge one more time. His officers were watching him with a mixture of fear and hope. They had all served the Confederation faithfully, but they had also seen the wonders that humanity had accomplished. They had seen what the galaxy could become. I need to ask you something, he said to Admiral Chun. Why should we trust you? How do we know you will not simply become the new conquerors? Because conquest was never our goal, Admiral. Our goal was survival. Then it became justice. Now it is peace. Words are easy to say. Then judge us by our actions. In 78 years of expansion, how many species have we conquered? How many worlds have we enslaved? Vexstar realized he already knew the answer. None. Every species that joins us does so by choice. Every world that becomes part of our alliance keeps its own government and culture. We are not building an empire, Admiral. We are building a community. The decision was becoming clear. Vexstar had spent his entire life serving an empire built on fear and domination. Now he had the chance to help build something based on cooperation and respect. What do you need from me? He asked. Return to the Confederation. Tell them what you have. Seen here, give them our message. Help them understand that the galaxy has changed and they must change with it. And if they refuse to listen, then we will make sure the galaxy hears our message anyway. Vexstar nodded slowly. He understood now why humanity's entertainment had always featured stories about the impossible becoming possible. They had not been creating fantasies. They had been preparing themselves for a future where they would need to do impossible things. Admiral Chun, I will carry your message. But I should warn you, the Confederation Council will not accept this easily. We know. That is why we are prepared for either outcome. As if to emphasize the point, the human fleet began moving into departure formations. In minutes, they had gone from a threatening presence to an organized force ready to strike anywhere in the galaxy. One last question, Vexstar said. What happens next? Next, the galaxy learns that humanity has arrived, and everything changes. As the human ships began disappearing back into hyperspace, Vexstar realized that the age of the Confederation was over. The predators had become the prey, and the prey had become something entirely new. The galaxy would never be the same.